There's a place on Earth more alien than the surface of Mars. It's darker than deep space, with pressure that would crush a nuclear submarine like a soda can in seconds. It's called the Mariana Trench, and in 2023, a team of marine biologists sent down a camera system expecting to find barren seafloor and maybe some small scavengers. What they captured instead has fundamentally changed our understanding of what can survive in the most extreme environment on the planet. 7 miles down, where sunlight has never reached, and the pressure is 16,000 pounds per square inch, the cameras recorded a thriving ecosystem of creatures that shouldn't exist. Not small bacteria clinging to survival, but large predators hunting in coordinated packs. Not primitive single-celled organisms, but complex animals with behaviors more sophisticated than species living in shallow water. The team watched the footage 3 times before anyone spoke, because what they were seeing violated everything they thought they knew about the limits of life. But here's what made the discovery truly terrifying. These weren't just animals adapted to extreme conditions. These were apex predators operating in total darkness at pressures that would instantly kill anything from the surface, using hunting strategies that marine biologists had never documented at any depth. And they weren't alone down there. The expedition launched from Guam in March 2023, using a custom-built lander system equipped with 4K cameras, bait stations, and pressure sensors designed to survive the crushing forces of the Haddle Zone. That's everything below 20,000 feet. The team from Newcastle University and the Japan Agency for Marine Earth Science and Technology had made dozens of Mariana Trench descents before. They expected the usual suspects at 36,000 feet, snailfish nibbling bait, amphipods swarming in clouds, maybe a grenadier fish if they were lucky. That's deeper than Mount Everest is tall. The pressure at that depth is 1,086 times what you feel standing at sea level. The temperature hovers just above freezing at 34 degrees Fahrenheit. There's zero light. Zero. The water is so oxygen-poor that nothing should be able to sustain an active metabolism. For the first 40 minutes, the cameras recorded exactly what they expected. Small amphipods, shrimp-like crustaceans about 2 inches long, appeared in swarms around the bait. These were known species, documented on previous dives. The team watched the live feed from the research vessel above, checking data logs, and preparing to retrieve the lander after its scheduled 4-hour deployment. Then something changed. The amphipods scattered, all of them simultaneously, fleeing in every direction like a school of fish evading a predator. The scientists assumed their lander had disturbed something, maybe knocked a rock that created vibrations. They kept watching. The camera frame was empty for 17 seconds. Then something entered from the left side of the screen that made the entire control room go silent. What appeared on camera was an amphipod, but not like any amphipod that should exist. Normal deep-sea amphipods are 1 to 3 inches long. This creature measured over 13 inches from head to tail, longer than a standard ruler. That's like finding a house cat the size of a lion. The size alone wasn't just unusual, it was biologically improbable at that depth. But here's why the size made no sense. There's a principle called deep-sea gigantism, where some species grow larger than their shallow water relatives. Giant isopods, for example, can reach 16 inches, but that happens at depths of 1,000 to 7,000 feet, where there's still some organic matter raining down from above. At 36,000 feet, there's almost no food. The less energy is available, and the smaller organisms should become. This amphipod was massive in the most food-scarce environment on Earth. The creature moved with disturbing speed and precision. It didn't scuttle randomly like the smaller amphipods. It moved deliberately, scanning the area with its antennae and sweeping patterns like it was hunting. The cameras captured it approaching the bait station from downslope, meaning it had detected the chemical signature of the bait from at least several hundred feet away and navigated directly to it through pitch darkness. Then it did something amphipods aren't supposed to do. Two smaller amphipods, probably 4 inches long, were feeding on the bait fish the team had placed in the trap. The supergiant amphipod didn't approach the bait. In a movement almost too fast for the camera to capture clearly, it lunged forward, grabbed one of the smaller amphipods with its elongated gnathopods, which are basically specialized feeding claws, and tore it apart. Not for the bait. For the amphipod itself. It was hunting its own species. It was a cannibal. And it was efficient. Marine biologist Dr. Alan Jamieson from Newcastle University, who led the expedition, later described the behavior as predatory in a way we don't associate with scavengers. Amphipods are supposed to be opportunistic feeders, eating dead organic matter that sinks from above. They're not supposed to hunt. They're definitely not supposed to hunt each other with the precision of an ambush predator. But the supergiant wasn't done. Over the next hour, the cameras documented 3 more attacks. Each time, the pattern was identical. The creature waited until smaller amphipods were distracted by feeding, then struck with explosive speed. It wasn't scavenging, it was hunting, and it was doing it in an environment where every movement costs precious energy, which means this hunting strategy had to be providing enough caloric return to justify the expenditure. That implies a sustainable population of prey, which implies an entire predator-prey ecosystem functioning at a depth where most scientists assumed complex food chains couldn't exist. While the team was processing the amphipod footage, something else appeared on camera that made them question their equipment. A fish. Not a small one. This was a snailfish measuring approximately 16 inches long with a body mass suggesting it weighed several pounds. At 35,876 feet, that's a problem. Here's why this fish existing at that depth breaks what we thought were biological limits. Fish skeletons are made of bone. Bone contains calcium and other minerals that create rigid structure. But rigid structure is catastrophic at extreme pressure. The more water pressure tries to compress everything. They shatter. That's why submarines are titanium spheres, and even those can only go so deep before the pressure crushes them into twisted metal. Fish at extreme depth solve this by having gelatinous bodies and cartilage instead of bone. They're basically boneless blobs of protein that can compress and withstand pressure because they don't resist it. The deepest fish ever recorded before this was a Mariana snailfish at 27,000 feet. Marine biologists had calculated that around 27,900 feet was the absolute maximum depth any fish could survive because below that, the proteins that hold cells together start to break down under pressure. This fish was 8,000 feet below that theoretical limit, and it wasn't just surviving. It was thriving. The footage showed it actively swimming, not drifting. Its movements were coordinated and purposeful. It approached the bait station, fed for several minutes, then swam away with strong, rhythmic body undulations that indicated muscular control and energy reserves. Dr. Jamieson's team analyzed the footage and identified features they'd never seen on deep-sea snailfish before. This species had larger eyes than other Hadal Zone fish, not vestigial blind spots, but actual functional eyes with visible pupils and corneas. Why would a fish need eyes in absolute darkness? Unless it's seeing something we can't detect on camera. Bioluminescence, maybe. Or detecting chemical signatures in ways we don't understand. But here's what made this truly bizarre. The fish showed 0 signs of barotrauma, which is tissue damage from pressure. When deep-sea creatures are brought to the surface, they often expand grotesquely as internal gases decompress. This fish looked perfectly structured at 36,000 feet, which means its cellular biology had adaptations we haven't identified yet. Adaptations that allow vertebrate tissue to withstand pressure that should liquefy it. 43 minutes into the footage, 3 more snailfish appeared simultaneously from different directions. They didn't arrive randomly over time. They arrived together, from 3 different approach vectors, converging on the bait station within seconds of each other. The team watching the footage assumed this was coincidence. Then they watched what happened next. The fish didn't swarm the bait like you'd expect from opportunistic scavengers. They took turns. One fish fed for approximately 90 seconds while the others held position 6 to 8 feet away. Then it moved back, and the second fish approached and fed for a similar duration. Then the third, they were coordinating, communicating somehow, organizing their behavior in a way that suggested social structure and hierarchy. This is not how deep-sea fish behave. Fish at extreme depth are supposed to be solitary or form loose aggregations around food sources, with every individual competing aggressively. Coordinated turn-taking implies sophisticated communication and social rules. It implies a level of cognitive processing that requires significant brain function, which requires oxygen and energy that shouldn't be available at that depth. Dr. Mackenzie Geringer, a deep-sea fish biologist at SUNY Geneseo, who reviewed the footage, stated that this behavior is more consistent with what we see in shallow water predators that hunt in packs, not with the opportunistic scavenging strategies we expect at hadal depths. She noted that coordinated feeding requires individuals to suppress immediate self-interest, which is a behavior typically associated with species that have long-term social bonds and potentially even recognize individual members of their group. But here's the question nobody could answer. How are they communicating? Sound travels differently at extreme depth and pressure. Bioluminescence requires energy. These fish shouldn't have. Chemical signals would disperse too slowly for coordinated timing. The fish must be using sensory mechanisms we haven't identified, operating on wavelengths or frequencies our equipment can't detect. The team watched the full 4 hours of footage and counted 11 separate fish appearances, with 8 of those showing coordinated arrival and turn-taking behavior. This wasn't a fluke. This was normal behavior for these creatures. Meaning there's a stable population of socially coordinated vertebrate predators living at 36,000 feet, which rewrites what we thought was possible. At timestamp 3 hours and 17 minutes, something floated past the camera that made the entire team's excitement turn to horror. A plastic shopping bag, drifting through the frame at 35,876 feet below the surface, the deepest point in the ocean, the most remote place on Earth. And there was a plastic shopping bag, but it gets worse. The bag wasn't just drifting, it had something in it. The cameras couldn't resolve the details, but there was clearly organic matter inside the bag, and small amphipods were crawling in and out of it, feeding on whatever decomposing material was trapped inside. This was the third piece of plastic debris they documented on Mariana Trench dives in the past 2 years. A soda bottle in 2021 at 34,000 feet, candy wrappers in 2022 at 33,600 feet. Now a shopping bag at almost 36,000 feet. Let's be clear about what this means. That plastic bag was probably dropped in the ocean somewhere in the Pacific, maybe off the coast of Asia or North America within the last decade. It sank 7 miles through complete darkness, past hydrothermal vents and underwater mountains, through pressure gradients that would crush human bodies into liquid, and it ended up at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, where it's now part of the ecosystem. The implications are devastating. If plastic is reaching the deepest point on Earth, it's reaching everywhere. There is nowhere left on this planet that humans haven't contaminated. Not the highest peaks, not the deepest oceans, not the most remote corners of the globe. We've successfully polluted the entire biosphere. But here's what nobody saw coming. The creatures living down there are adapting to the plastic. Later analysis of amphipod specimens collected from the trench found microplastics in their digestive systems, not just passing through, but integrated into their tissue. These animals are evolving in an environment that includes human-made polymers as part of the available resources. They're eating it. They're potentially using it as habitat. The plastic isn't just contamination. It's becoming part of the hadal ecosystem. A marine biologist specializing in deep-sea contamination published a paper in 2024 analyzing the team's findings. She concluded that plastic debris has reached the deepest biosphere on Earth and is being incorporated into food webs in ways we don't fully understand. The long-term implications for deep-sea ecosystems are unknown, but the speed of contamination suggests that even the most remote environments are not isolated from human activity. The Mariana Trench footage revealed three things that marine biology textbooks will need to rewrite. First, complex predator-prey ecosystems exist at depths previously thought to be at the absolute limit of multicellular life. Second, vertebrate animals with social coordination and hunting behaviors are thriving in conditions that should make such energy-intensive activities impossible. Third, human contamination has reached the deepest point on Earth faster than anyone predicted, and the ecosystem is already adapting to it. But here's the bigger question the team is now facing. If life this complex exists at 36,000 feet, where we thought nothing substantial could survive, what else exists down there that we haven't found yet? The Mariana Trench is only 1,580 miles long and 43 miles wide. That's tiny compared to the world's oceans, and we've only explored about 3% of it with cameras. What's in the other 97%? The supergiant amphipod documented on this dive is probably not the apex predator of that ecosystem. It's too small and too vulnerable. There's likely something bigger hunting it. The coordinated snailfish are exhibiting pack behavior, typically associated with pursuing prey too large or dangerous for a single individual to handle. What are they hunting when they're not feeding on bait stations? What's at the top of this food chain? The team submitted their findings to Nature in late 2023. The paper's conclusion stated that the Hattle Zone contains biodiversity and behavioral complexity that exceeds previous models. The presence of large, socially coordinated predators at maximum ocean depth suggests that our understanding of the limits of life is incomplete. Further exploration is required to determine the full extent of Hattle ecosystems and the adaptations that allow complex life to persist under conditions previously thought prohibitive. What they found in the Mariana Trench isn't just a few weird fish and some big amphipods. It's evidence that the deepest, darkest, most extreme environment on Earth is more alive than we imagined. With predators hunting in the dark, with social structures we don't understand, with adaptations to pressure and darkness that biology says shouldn't work, and with plastic bags that we dropped in the ocean now drifting through ecosystems 7 miles down that we only just discovered exist. The entire team was left speechless because what they found wasn't just unexpected. It was impossible, according to everything they'd been taught, and impossibility means the rules are wrong, which means we don't actually know what's down there. We just know it's not empty.